Welcome to a few moments together on the Parsha. This Shabbos we have the privilege of reading Parshas Acharei. The Parsha of Acharei really is tied, the beginning of it at least, to what happened in Parshas Shmini when the two sons of Aaron died. As the first pasuk tells us, Vaydaber Hashem Moshe Acharei Mos Shnei Bnei Aaron B'karvasam Lifnei Hashem Vayamusu, when they came close to Hashem and they died. This was a great tragedy at the height of the joy of the Jewish people beginning to sanctify the Beis Mikdash Ma'at, the Mishkan in the Midbar. Nevertheless, the actions of the Shnei Bnei Aaron, the two sons of Aaron, in bringing Ketores without being asked to, ended up, as Rav Hirsch explains, that they lost their lives because no Jew can ever bring a carbon of Ketores on their own, because the carbon of Ketores, which implies you're coming close with your soul, and no human being, no Jew knows when their soul is close to Hashem, and that's a bit untoward to take upon yourself the statement, I know that I am close to Hashem. When Hashem commands us to bring Ketores, then we can bring it. But otherwise, the two sons of Aaron brought Ketores that was unwanted, as the pasuk in Shmini says, Asher lo tziva osam, they were not commanded, and so they paid for it with their lives. It was a terrible tragedy for Aaron and the Jewish people, and nevertheless, Aaron did not complain, as we find Vayidom Aaron. The Sedget itself speaks about, mostly at the beginning, the special observances of Yom Kippur. And one of the things we should focus on and be aware of is that the Jewish people were commanded, and Aaron and Moshe were commanded, to bring Shnei Seirei Izim Lechatos. We were told to bring 2 he-goats as a korban chatas. Now, normally, a korban chatas is only one animal, but in this case, we are told to bring Shnei Seirei Izim Lechatos. By the extra word Shnei, 2, without having to say it, because if it would have just said Seirim, we would have known that Miyut Rabim Shnayim, the minimum of the plural is 2, and as it says, you're going to make Echad Korban Lashem and Echad La'azazel. So the fact that it says Shnei, the Gemara in Yuma and Daf Samach Beis in the Mishnah, the 7th Perek, tells us that the 2 goats had to be equal in height, in appearance, in color, in value. They had to be chosen at the same time to show the duality of what the korban was all about. The korban was about one korban chatas, which has a dual nature, because every human being has a sense of himself that has a Yetzer Tov, and every Jew has a sense of Yetzer Ra. And when we come before Hashem, and when we worship Him, and when we ask for atonement and forgiveness on Yom Kippur, we're asking forgiveness for the actions that we did properly with our Yetzer Tov, and even improperly with our Yetzer Ra. And they are both part of one korban. Normally a korban chatas is only one animal. And here, there had to be 2 the same in height, in appearance, and so on. And consequently, when this takes place, that there are 2 goats which are exactly the same, and they're being brought as a korban chatas, we are getting an insight into the dual nature of a human being. And when Yom Kippur comes, we're asking that the Jewish people recognize the duality of our natures and come before Hashem with this duality as part of one whole human being, that we are this one human being with a Yetzer Tov and a Yetzer Ra, and we want to use all of our inclinations, our good and our bad, to serve Hashem. The good one, of course, is easy to do when you're following Hashem, but even when there's an evil inclination and we control it, we overcome it. We do not let it run wild as an azazel, which means ozel, it runs wild. if we don't allow it to, and we manage to rein in our inner desires and use the inclination not to follow it, but rather to dedicate all of our actions to Hashem, we are performing what Hashem wants on Yom Kippur, and we're getting the protection of the day of Yom Kippur. We're getting the protection, as Rav Shem Shofar says, of the word Kippur. Kippur has its origin in the word kofer, as it says in Parshas Noach, v'chofarta osa mibayis umichutz ba'kofer. You have to smear it on the inside and on the outside with pitch, because by Noach, the waters were so strong, you wanted to make sure it didn't burst through the outer layer of protection, nor the inner one. We too, when it comes to being observant of our inclinations, we want to protect our soul, that it shouldn't be negatively affected by the Yetzer Hara on the inside, and we shouldn't be negatively affected by any of the transgressions which human beings inevitably make, because we're only humans, and ain't tzaddik ba'aretz asher yaseh tov v'lo yechta, and we ask Hashem to protect us from the inclination and from the actions that inclination might lead us to. And so Yom Kippur, of course, is a time of protection for the Jewish people. And therefore we protect ourselves by acting in accordance with the karbanos, the coming close offerings of the chatas, and hoping that Hashem protects us all this time as we act according to the mitzvahs of the Torah. So Acharei Mos is full of all of these beautiful ideas to enable us to act in accordance with what Hashem wants and to bring us closer to Him as we begin our voyage to Shavuos and beyond, ultimately to the Yomim Noraim. I want to take this opportunity to wish a wonderful Shabbat Shalom u'Mevorach to all Klal Yisrael and our members in the Young Israel Bethel of Borough Park. We wish everyone a wonderful upcoming time as we get closer to the Yom Tov of Shavuos, to embrace the Torah, get closer to it, and ultimately bring peace for Klal Yisrael. Shabbat Shalom u'Mevorach.